Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
This could go many different ways.
Really good. I haven't got a clue.
Well, welcome back to Painting of the Week. It is a beautiful sunny day in Brighton after the most torrential rain last night. And I'm Phil.
And I think I'm Laura. I think I'm still here.
I think you're still Laura. We're giggling because we were just admiring the extraordinary set of fridge magnets.
Which I didn't even know that you did.
They are available in all good bookshops, in all good stores and online, particularly from our website. The exhibition on screen, set of 8 fridge magnets. And frankly, if you haven't got them all, well, I don't know.
Well, I've now just witnessed, this is the first one I've ever seen in the flesh. I have got an issue though, unfortunately, Phil, that I couldn't stick this on my fridge because I'm one of those people that has
the wooden front.
Yeah, I know. So it'll have to be on the washing machine.
Washing machine's okay.
Sorry about that.
A lot of people see it, or just glue them on.
In the middle of my newly painted, which Matt has just painted actually. He'll be really pleased.
The question is, which of the 8 is your favourite? I think give that Manet a drink. Give that Manet drink is perhaps the silliest. Show me the Monet.
Show me the Monet, I think, is mine. It's definitely my favourite.
What would Frida do? That's a good one. Mm. But the one that I've just given you there is a chip off the old block, which is the Michelangelo one. Anyway,
yes,
we're actually here to talk about an Italian painter, Andrea Mantegna. And we're looking today at the triumphs of Caesar. If you go to the website, seventh-art.com, the picture will be there and you can have a look at it. I first came across this set of paintings. Oof, that's quite scary. 24 years ago, when I was making a series on the history of Rome for the BBC and A&E in the United States and ABC Australia and called I, Caesar, the Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And I did an awful lot of research. So I looked at paintings that depicted the Roman Empire and the history of Rome. Ultimately, I didn't use any of them. I only used contemporary visuals. So statues from the period, paintings from the period. I didn't use anything that was done after the event where people have interpreted it.
What?
One, because often, as you see in this picture, it probably bears only passing resemblance to what it was really like.
Right.
It says much more about the time in which the painting was created, probably more than, somebody in the 15th century trying to imagine what ancient Rome was like.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is less likely to be accurate.
So what did you use instead, sorry? Statues, did you say?
A lot of statues.
Where were they?
No, but we used contemporary artworks.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, you're very fortunate. I mean, all the key characters that I talk about, including Julius Caesar, there are very beautiful statues that were done of them. And it happened to be the case that Roman art at that time did kind of go after passable likenesses. It's very hard for us to know for sure, isn't it? Of course.
Yes.
But whereas if you look at Egyptian art, so some time before the Roman Empire, then there's not so much character in the faces of the pharaoh. But when you get to the Romans, you can find a statue of an emperor and you will be able to know that's Hadrian, that's Constantine, that's Justinian, it's amazing.
Where did you see the majority of those statues then?
I travelled for that project 50,000 miles around the Mediterranean. I went everywhere.
Oh, that sounds nice.
It was amazing. And places like Syria and Libya and Jordan Actually, it was particularly exciting in those countries where the Roman remains had been covered in sand,
right?
Which was a great preservative. And, like in North Africa, peoples were more nomadic. In Europe, a Roman city was often built on a confluence of rivers, for example. So somewhere like Trier, there's so many examples. But that meant that after the Romans, it was constantly rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt. And then there's these devastating wars, most recently the Napoleonic Wars, and then the First World War and the Second World War. So things were destroyed. Paris, London, these places, all the Roman ruins are built upon.
Yeah.
Even Rome disappears basically under, slightly different, but it disappears under more recent constructions or just under dirt. Anyway, North Africa, where you had these fantastic Roman cities, but then when they're abandoned and the Romans retreat, these are nomadic peoples. So they tended not to be kind of built upon and rebuilt upon. They tended to just be absorbed by the sands of time, literally. So that when they were uncovered, they're perfectly preserved.
Yeah, amazing.
They are absolutely extraordinary. So painting plays such an important part in the way that we visualize history. So people might see this and think, oh yeah, that's how the Romans were. Or we've talked before about the David painting of Napoleon crossing the Alps on his mighty steed. And he wasn't. He crossed it on a donkey or a mule or something. And the Romans, there's nothing the Romans didn't know. So Augustus had apparently, according to one of the writers, and you've got to be a bit careful with trusting them entirely, but still, he was small, he had bad teeth, he wore platform shoes to ride him up. And he was elderly. Well, if you see the statues are of somebody, somebody's just walked out of a heavyweight boxing ring. Handsome, broad-shouldered, wearing military armor, because nobody knew what their emperor looked like.
No.
So the only way you got to know was the legions would disappear off into France or Spain or wherever it might be, North Africa, and they would take statues of the emperor, and they wanted to show someone that was young, virile, strong. Yeah.
But also they probably didn't want to upset him.
And they definitely didn't.
we had this conversation as well about...
They definitely didn't want to upset him.
No. So you're not going to make him with his platform shoes on, are you?
No.
Well, if you do, you're going to make them good ones.
So we have to be a little bit cautious when we look at Mantegna's portraits, because this particular one, which is the 9th of the 9, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And I had trouble, I said to you today, I had a little bit of trouble trying to find them all together in one go. However, if anyone wants to take a little trip, they can go to Hampton Court Palace.
They're all in Hampton Court Palace. Hampton Court is an absolutely fantastic place. By the way, this is the 1st, not the 9th. Sorry, I meant there's 9, but this is the 1st.
Okay. But this one is your favourite? Or not? Or you're not allowed to say?
I think, well, to be honest, I chose this one just because it's the 1st of the 9.
Okay.
And it's quite an extraordinary group. I mean, Mantegna is a great artist, and this is considered to be, we should never pay much attention to those words. It is considered to be. We can make our own decisions. But it is considered to be his masterpiece. And actually, when you look at the 9 across a whole wall of Hampton Court, Hampton Court, for those who haven't been, Laura, is...
don't tell everybody that. Isn't there a maze there?
There is a maze there.
Well, I would get lost in the maze because I like those sort of things.
It is a fantastic place. Obviously, it was the palace, Henry VIII, but it's stunning, beautiful, and it's got some great artwork in it.
I'm going to go. I promise.
I think a little day out.
Yes, we all say this.
I know. Well,
and then you get too busy. Well, you go to Washington.
All right. Well, we should do it.
And I go to Liverpool.
So these were painted in the 15th century. We've probably got some details because I know you've done some notes.
Well, a little bit, but more. Mine was all about Caesar, to be fair. I was getting right into his story.
Okay.
But because I had a bit of trouble finding the paintings all in one hit, I did think to myself, I wonder how we're going to do today, because I didn't know which one you wanted to pick or if you wanted to do them all. So I thought we would end up sort of scrolling through each painting, but actually it's much better
we'll just look at this one.
Number one.
Well, if we look at this painting,
it's busy.
Called The Picture Bearers. And what these paintings do basically is they celebrate the triumphs of Caesar. So there is a bit of history here, which is worth pointing out. Rome was a republic by the 1st century BC, where 2 senators would become consuls, but they would share the rule of Rome between them for 12 months. And then they would be replaced by somebody else. And the idea was to make sure that it didn't become a de facto monarchy. It's quite interesting. But, humans being humans, men being men, people were always trying to line their own pockets and so forth. And one of the things was then to become a proconsul of a province, or to become a military commander and go off to an existing province, or even better, perhaps conquer a new province. Yeah. All of which really was to generate wealth and booty and money, slaves. I mean, it was, we tend to over-romanticize the Roman Empire. Those 1950s Hollywood films, and the Romans were brutal. And, in passing, people talk about 1 million Gauls being killed by Julius Caesar. Okay, pause. 1 million?
Yes.
At a time when the population of Britain can't have been much more than, I don't know, I can't remember, I don't know what it was, but wouldn't have been much more than that. That's a huge, now, in the ancient world, basically a big number is given an even big number.
Yeah.
So people would say, there were 300,000 soldiers that day. There might only have been 50,000. What they're saying is there was a lot.
Yes, okay.
But 1 million, whether it's exactly 1 million or not, is a lot of Gauls were killed.
Yes.
And, the Romans, they crucified people. That's a very, very brutal way to kill somebody.
Yeah.
They were also very pragmatic, so that if you succumbed to their rule then they would, let you stay. So, in Britain, for example, tribal leaders here would become Roman, and they'd start to live their life as Romans, and they enjoyed it. We've got examples near where we live of local British tribal leaders becoming de facto Romans with their villas and their baths and their togas. And anyway,
look, like you say, when you get to that stage, quite a nice life
for those at the top.
Yes.
Now,
purple togas.
What these proconsuls and what these military commanders were very nervous about, essentially, was being forgotten.
Right.
Back in Rome. And ultimately, most of them, Julius Caesar for sure, actually wanted to go back to Rome and reestablish themselves in positions of power. And so what they were allowed to do as military commanders, as proconsuls, was to march through Rome in what was called a triumph.
Okay.
And in that triumph, you would have, when Julius Caesar defeated in the great battle of Alesia, he defeated the great Celtic king Vercingetorix.
I'm so pleased you said that.
He was
practicing that all week.
It was the most amazing. Vercingetorix. The tangent's going off on a tangent. But Vercingetorix was in a hill fort, very well defended, and Julius Caesar basically decided to encircle the entire hill with fortifications. This is kilometre after kilometre after kilometre of fencing, ditches, spikes in the ditches. Yeah. It's amazing. And he basically starves them out, fights, draws them out, fights them, defeats them. Anyway, Vercingetorix and the booty and slaves and the rest of it were then taken. So Vercingetorix taken back in chains back to Rome, where I believe he was executed. His wealth that the Romans, basically Julius Caesar then marches through Rome
Yeah.
in a triumphal way through the Forum with his slaves, with his booty, triumphant soldiers behind him. And he's basically saying, look at me.
Yes.
Now, I do know that this particular triumph, these 9 paintings, are not of any specific triumph or campaign. Julius Caesar was very active. I mean, he conquered Gaul after a couple of setbacks, Britain to some extent. He was in Spain, in other places too. But if we look in this first picture, if you look at the pennants, no, what's the word? Not flags, but the paintings that they're holding, they're kind of painted flags.
Right.
They're obviously, what do they look like? They don't look, I mean, there's no cities like that that they would have conquered. These are contemporary to Mantegna, Italian towns and cities. So what we know straight away is actually what Mantegna is talking about is either he's got no idea what ancient Rome looked like.
No.
But that's a bit unlikely, bearing in mind he's Italian and he's got Roman ruins around him. Or he's actually making reference to his own time. And indeed, we know that's the case because we know that these were probably commissioned by a guy called Gonzaga, who was in charge of Mantua. And so
yes, that's it, yeah.
What he's really saying is he's saying that my boss, the man who's commissioned this, is as great as Julius Caesar. And these, I'm slightly guessing now, but I would imagine that Mantua is one of those cities that then obviously had control over lands around it. And these are probably depicting some of the towns and cities, if not Mantua itself, and some of the towns and cities that Gonzaga controls.
Right.
These guys, which are kind of partly supposed to be Romans, but are also dressed in Renaissance dress to some extent. They're heralding Gonzaga. It's all a contemporary message, which often, even when you read, they say that, when you read a history book, if you read the history of the Roman Empire, that history will change depending on the period in which it was written.
Right.
And the attitude towards the Romans will change. So right now, people will approach the Romans perhaps more than ever before in terms of their brutality, their imperialism, their use of slaves. Victorians saw things differently.
Yeah.
Early 20th century saw things differently. So, but this is as much about 15th century city-states. And we've talked about that with other artists, haven't we? But, right now I'm working on a film about Caravaggio, where to understand his life, you have to understand the rivalry between Rome and Naples. And Naples was the second biggest city in Europe and was far bigger than Rome. Rome was small at that time.
I just thought like one big mass history train here.
So, get off the train now. So,
I mean,
it's very beautifully rendered. I'm just looking at one of the 9.
Oh, I know.
When you first look at it, you go to Hampton Court and you're overwhelmed by armour and tapestries and, just the building itself. And you see these 9 paintings and they're very, very busy. And it's easy to be like, oh, it's too much.
Yeah, that's true.
That's when you stop. And you go, all right, what am I actually looking at here?
These paintings are sort of marble-like, aren't they?
Yeah.
The way he actually paints.
Yeah.
I've obviously looked at some of his others, and I think it's just Every time I say I love something more, when I started looking at these paintings, I was just like, oh, they're amazing. Such a different style from all the others. So I don't know, but I love them. I really do. And it's like marble. It is like marble, almost like glass. Some of it. The fabric. So, yeah.
What do we know also about Mantegna?
Well, that's where he came from, Mantova, which is where you said.
Yeah.
I've been looking at all the other ones though, and then you said about doing these.
Oh, look at these other works.
Yes.
What did you see? I like
that oculus in the palace, which I can't pronounce.
What?
So I left it to you because you were making me laugh earlier. There's that. There's an oculus where it looks through to the sky.
Oh, the hole in the roof.
Oh, I really, really love that. Yeah, of the painted room.
Yeah.
The whole room is painted.
And there's people looking over the edge, aren't they?
Yes, but they're real sweet comedy. It's like a little comedy piece, in my eyes, anyway.
Well, I'm only guessing, but I mean, I don't know his history well enough. But I mean, one of my favourite buildings in the world is the Pantheon in Rome.
Yeah, you said that before, actually.
Yeah. Well,
so that's another place to go.
Laura, quite a lot of this I've said before.
No, we're not both repeating ourselves, surely.
It's going to happen. But I mean, that's an amazing building until 19-something or other. Till the 20th century, it was the biggest concrete dome in the world, built by the Romans. And it's got a big hole in the roof where rain comes in. I've been in there when it's been raining. It's amazing. He must have seen it or heard about it, you know.
What, Mantegna must have heard about it? Yeah, for sure. Oh, which is why you think he's done the oculus.
I suspect.
I mean, we've gone completely off the painting now, but I think people, I'm sure every person that was listening to this, if they know your work, then they obviously know this piece. And I just love it because of the whole. It's got quite a little bit of comedy to it. There's a woman with a bit of wood across it, and it looks like there's a bucket of water onto it. So it looks like if she pulls the wood, that's going to come down onto you.
Oh, okay.
So they had some real sweet little sense of humour, some of these artists, for sure. I mean, it must have been quite a time, so.
I mean, I think he's a great. I mean, well, let's go back to our painting we were looking at.
Yeah, go back to the painting. But he was known for his foreshortening, wasn't he? Extreme perspectives. But there's not so much in this, I don't think.
It's quite flat, actually.
Yeah.
Even the flags are quite, are on almost on the same plane as the trumpeters.
That's what I remember reading about him, about that he's known for his extreme perspectives. But when I looked at these paintings, I really couldn't see any of it. So
this is Tempera on canvas.
Okay.
Which is quite interesting. You were talking about the way that it looked. So this is where the pigment is mixed with a kind of an agent that fixes it. In this case, egg.
Oh.
And
that's how you got that marble.
So it's a very different. It's almost pastel, isn't it? It's a very different look than, say, oils. And it's it's painted onto canvas. Oil painting, again, oil painting really comes down from Northern Europe about this time. So Leonardo, when he's starting out, he starts to experience the first time that oil paintings are arriving in Italy.
Okay.
And they're dumbfounded. They just think it's fantastic because the density and the richness and the
it's actually quite funny, isn't it? Think about it. They didn't have TV or anything, and suddenly this painting arrives. So does everyone just flock?
Yeah, all artists would just be. It's a little bit like when I was starting out as a documentary filmmaker. If there was a new documentary series on the BBC, you would watch it.
Right.
Now there's so much that you miss 9/10 of it. And when you do watch something, it's 50-50 whether it's particularly good. But if you imagine when there was a new Leonardo, when there was a new Caravaggio, when there was a new Raphael, if you had any interest in art, and particularly if you were an artist, you would definitely make a beeline.
Right. It's funny, isn't it, when you think about it? It's such a different time because you always look at a painting and imagine it in our time, but it's actually
and
there isn't.
And don't forget, often these paintings were done locally. So this is a good example where it's been done and stays locally. It doesn't go to Hampton Court for, you know, a good 150, 200 years. It's later, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries where all these paintings and collections start getting passed around, sold through conquest. You know, when Napoleon traveled with his hundreds of thousands of soldiers, behind them you've got the whole logistical train providing food. Then sometimes you've got families, women, but within all that you've also got those that are given the task of either mapping art or just stealing it. Let's call it what it is. So, you know, why does the Louvre have such an amazing collection? Because some of that stuff is nicked by Napoleon when he... Yeah. And, you know, the British were at it. They're all at it. And and then sometimes monarchs get into trouble, so they have to sell up. So Philip II might sell to... I don't know, you know.
Yeah. So the Triumphs of Cedars were acquired by...
Charles I. Yeah. And he was again, the history of collection, fantastic. So he was a real collector of art.
Okay.
And so I don't know what he paid, but he paid probably a decent sum. And over it came. In fact, there was a very good exhibition at the Queen's Gallery a couple of years ago, so just before COVID, about the collection of Charles I, much of which, of course, has ended up in the Royal Collection. The Royal Collection has over 1 million artworks.
Wow.
Over 1 million artworks. Now, some of those might be vases that Prince Philip was given by a Maori chief.
Right.
Still an artwork.
And a lot of them archived, do you think? I mean, obviously, they're just...
No, the palaces will have some on display. The Queen's Gallery will, they'll do exhibitions on the basis of, we filmed a Canaletto exhibition there, and they'll do...
Oh, okay.
But most of them are just stored away.
Yeah.
So the Royal... I remember we filmed in Windsor. We went into the library, and there was one corridor they showed me where the guy said to me, he said, just stop for a minute and imagine this wooden corridor with these shelves and this little wooden step ladder. He said, 400 years ago, I can guarantee you that Elizabeth I was standing there looking at some of these books. I mean, it's extraordinary.
And I bet you were standing there working out how to move them all, Phil.
We weren't.
If that guy goes off for a cuppa...
He wasn't leaving us alone for a second.
I'm not surprised. They've heard of your reputation.
But on the shelves there, they've got drawings of Raphael, drawings of Leonardo.
Oh, amazing.
I mean, it's just staggering what they've got. And... we can all have views on it, but I mean, the conservation work they do is second to none.
Yeah.
And this, in a way, is the argument for some of these artworks staying at the British Museum or in the Royal Collection or wherever it might be, because they're very well looked after and conserved and archived. And maybe if they were repatriated or had never been stolen in the first place, they might have been lost.
It's difficult, that one. That's a really difficult subject.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about that the other day with the Ashmoleum and stuff like that, weren't we? And, I said, this little child was in front of me looking at all these little things. It was quite nice. Had they all gone back to the countries where they came from? Yeah. I don't know. But it is really, that's a very tricky subject.
It is. But where we're getting to these days is the quality of a copy... can be extremely good. So So you probably could make the argument now. Let's say the Elgin Marbles, which is the big one.
Oh yes.
A company called Factum Arte, who do the most fantastic facsimiles. So you can't tell really. Well, you can barely tell. Why doesn't someone commission them to make copies? Yeah. All right. Then there's a conversation about who should have the copy and who should have the original. I'd have thought maybe it's time the original went back to Pantheon. The Pantheon is well looked after now, and it's
that's a great idea, Phil.
But have you still heard this idea? But you still got 99.9% 99% of people looking at them in the British Museum wouldn't know that they were copies.
No.
And wouldn't care necessarily.
No, because then they could get close enough, move them about a bit, put a black cloth behind them, and
Van
no
Gogh.
one would care. Sorry, Phil, that still makes me laugh.
The Van Gogh Museum were thinking very carefully about making 3D. This is very clever. So, working towards the possibility of digitally sending a 3D copy of a Van Gogh painting.
Right.
So basically, they send a digital file to, say, a Japanese company that in Tokyo would then 3D, you know how you can make 3D?
Yeah.
You can now print out things. So people talk about printing out 3D motorcycle parts or whatever it might be. So you print out the 3D painting, which looks is a very, very high quality copy of the original. Mm-hmm. And they put that in the exhibition, and it prevents the need to actually transport these fragile and invaluable original paintings, to Japan.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow. Do you think? Oh, I don't know.
I don't think they've got there.
People go. Be good.
Well, then you have the argument that are people going because they're in presence of the original icon. Mm. So if you can't tell the difference, then it shouldn't matter. But if you knew that it was fake, it probably would be a little less appealing.
I don't know. It's difficult.
I commissioned from a Chinese gallery a copy of a Caravaggio painting. It cost me $200, $250. It was really good. In oil, on canvas.
Have you got that in your house? Is it here?
I gave it to my brother as a present.
Does he know that it's a copy? Good Christmas.
The original was probably worth $50 to $100 million. So
oh, no, you love him, Phil. Come on.
I think he knows. But
we've really gone off this painting, haven't we?
Okay. So, what can we see in the painting? Well,
I think we should say to people,
look at yourselves.
Why don't we all go to Hampton Court? Because actually, the thing that intrigues me the most about just looking at number one.
You talked about having a day out.
Let's have a day out with everyone from the podcast. It'd be such fun.
It would be quite good. Actually, we should do that, shouldn't we?
Yeah, let's do it.
On a particular day.
Everyone meet
in the maze.
What's the worst that could happen, though? No one's going to turn up.
Everyone bring a dish.
That'd be so good. No, but I think the thing that's intriguing me the most now is because we've only picked number one, is that I'm going to go home and see if I can see the others.
And look at the other 8.
Yes. And I think in situ, in all together, would be so much
okay, look, let's go to Hampton Court.
Yes.
Find another painting which we can talk about.
Yes.
Maybe get a curator to we'll do one of our podcasts with a local curator.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And while they have a sneaky look at this, and
do you think they would? Yeah, I think they'd love us to come.
Yeah, sure, no question.
But even with your reputation, Phil,
they just don't let me move any busts. Yes. Well,
we've done really well. I've got so many notes.
What are you?
It was all about perspectives.
Come on, top 3 factoids in your notes.
Well, no, because I was looking at that painting, the Lamentation of Over the Dead Christ, which is one of his really famous ones. Yes, and that's
really powerful. Actually, I should have put that in Eastern art. That's a great painting.
It's amazing, and they found that after he died, so they don't really know.
Can you imagine? The perspective in that is extraordinary.
It is, and I do hope that everyone
looks it up.
I think they should.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
I didn't know his work, and then I saw that painting. I have seen that painting before.
That's why our Eastern art film, which we're releasing next Easter, so Easter 2022.
So can't you now put that in?
No.
Okay, fine.
No, it's finished.
Okay.
But that's why I keep saying it doesn't matter whether you're Christian or not. The paintings are so powerful, so spiritual. And there's so many different things, relationship between a mother and a son. Anyway, there's all sorts of things in these paintings. But they're also a history of art because all great painters have dealt. It's the most painted story in history.
Yes.
All painters have dealt with it until recently, at least.
Yes.
And Mantegna's that's very powerful. I mean, it's halfway, isn't it, towards which I think is one of your favourite paintings, the Dali Crucified Christ, where it's really odd perspective. You're actually on top looking down.
Okay.
So again, playing with, it's actually really hard to do perspective. I was looking at a Caravaggio the other day in the National Gallery, Supper at Emmaus, and the left hand is coming towards you, and it's of a particular size. He's trying to, and the person has their arms outstretched, but the right hand, which is stretching away from you, but it's too big, so you're confused.
Yep.
So difficult to do. And that's Caravaggio, one of the greatest artists of all time. Got to say, making a mistake. I can't believe he did it on purpose to give this guy an oversized right hand.
No, he didn't mess it up, surely. What are you saying, Phil? You can't say that. No.
Yeah, so there's plenty to look at. Mantegna,
definitely.
Probably an artist that some people have not heard of. Definitely worth a look. Hampton Court, if you're in London, live in London, travelling through London.
And maybe we might have a date
100%.
to meet us.
And we'll go. Whether we want thousands of our loyal, lovely podcasters to join us.
We'll be there with fridge magnets.
We'll wait to see. Oh, yeah, fridge magnets. Christmas is coming. Fridge magnets in all your stockings, please.
Yes.
Right. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.